Hi there, I'm Lucy Paget. Welcome to part 2 of my short talk about gut health. So this first part and second part, I want to help you choose differently and help you get a sense of some foods that might be causing you problems and what you can do to take those foods out, what you can do in the void that's created when you take the foods out. And in this talk, I want to focus much more on posture and how that affects our organs and how gut health can actually create poor posture. To briefly recap, in the first talk, we talked about you choosing differently. And then we looked about what you can do. The first step is to eliminate the obvious problems. So the obvious problems are the foods that many of us have sensitivities to and sugar. And the obvious sensitivities, there's grains, wheat, there are eggs, dairy and corn. And so pulling those out, doing an elimination diet is a really great way to start off. Looking at quality too, making sure you're getting really good quality foods. We then looked a little bit in the void that's created. What should you be having? How can you choose to bring in more healthy and enlivening foods into your diet once we strip away some of the things that you're used to eating? So looking at alternative grains like buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, and then looking at the full spectrum of colors. So every color is a chemical signature for health. So is your plate full of colors? And now let's have a look at movement and how movement is the recipe for health and how movement is related to gut health as well. This is not something that we think about a whole lot. So I want to give you the example, I'm going to just erase this as I'm talking, of, we'll call him Mr. Bob. So Mr. Bob started off life looking good. He had really nice posture and he stood upright, and because he stood upright, his lungs worked well. So in a perfect world, your eyes will always be looking forwards. Our body will do everything it needs to in order to have our eyes facing forwards. So let's draw a head up here for Mr. Bob, and his eyes, and he's happy at this point in his life, and his head, he's looking forwards. Now, because he's got a good posture, his neck is doing okay. When we start to lose our posture, we start to get more of an extended neck. So over here, I'll draw Mr. Bob when he's gotten a bit older. He hasn't looked after himself as well, and he is not happy. We can draw a little tear in there. He's so unhappy. And he's still looking forwards because his neck is enabling him to look forwards. But you can see that bigger curve I've had to draw on him. Back when he was younger, his C-spine or cervical spine was nicely rounded, not too much, not too little, and his upper back worked fairly well, just a gentle rounding. His lower back was okay, so it's kind of this nice S shape through there. And then down here, his pelvis, I'm going to draw the sacrum in there. Everything was nicely balanced. Because it was nicely balanced, his shoulders weren't rounded forwards, so his arms just hang nice and loosely by his sides. And going back to his lungs, we don't often think about this, but our lungs really rely on the movement of our chest muscles and our rib cage. So if our rib cage and our thoracic spine is held in nice alignment, our lungs under here can do a really good job of expanding and contracting. And when the lungs do a good job of expanding and contracting, they can help to bring in enough oxygen to get into the red blood vessels to circulate through your system so that you've got good arterial perfusion all throughout your body, which would be nice for people who have cold fingers and cold toes to have better perfusion of oxygen. So getting really good thoracic movement. So I'll draw some little ribs over here as well. So all is good. Then we've got the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle at the bottom of the rib cage. And the diaphragm, as you inhale, it descends, creates a really nice widening, and as it descends, it massages your abdominal organs. Now the abdominal organs, I'm just going to draw a nice sac here because the abdominal organs are surrounded by fluid, they're surrounded by a membrane, the peritoneal sac. And so every time you're breathing, there's this massaging action of the diaphragm going down, the diaphragm coming up. So that's why when you go to yoga class, when you go to exercise class, when you've been for any therapy, you've probably been told how important it is to breathe. And it It is for obvious reasons, and it is for not so obvious reasons which are related to gut health. You want that nice pumping, massaging organ. The kidneys actually are connected to the psoas muscle, which is the psoas is our hip flexor muscle, and the kidneys sit in front of the psoas muscle, and every time you breathe, the kidneys move up and down, and there's some really interesting MRIs, moving MRIs that I had access to a while back, which actually looked at the movement of the organs, and one of the most interesting organs to look at was the kidneys in terms of the amount that they're moving as the diaphragm pumps them up and down. So we really think, especially as an osteopath, we're really taught that movement is key, and movement both at a micro level, so when something's really stuck, either where it's a joint or maybe it's actually some adhesion around one of your organs, so small movements, really important to release off, free off for internal as well as more superficial health, and also big movements, so the movements of our shoulder joints, the movement of our hips. We've got to look at movement from a micro to a macro level in terms of what it gives us for health. And that's really why we opened the Natural Movement Center, so that we could actually start to teach people how to move better. Before I get into that, let's look a little bit more at Mr. Bob. So right now, let's say he's in his teens, and he's in his teens and he hasn't developed kind of one of these terrible teenage postures. He's been okay, and he's eaten good food, so his tummy in here, it's happy as well. So everything over here is good, hurrah. And his hips are healthy, he walks well, he moves well, and the hips giving lots of circulation to his pelvic organs as well, so all well. But then, as he gets a bit older, he starts to develop, let's say he starts to develop a poorer posture. We could give many reasons to this. Maybe let's give him some gut problems because we're talking about gut health. So here's his diaphragm again. And actually we want to make this rounder because as soon as the neck changes, the thoracic spine as well has to change. And then the lower back changes. As a whole angle of what the spinal curves look like changes dramatically. So, Mr. Bob has been drinking too much alcohol. He's been going to too many parties. And the sugar from the alcohol is making his liver unhappy. The sugar from the alcohol is making his hormones unhappy. And he's starting to lose a bit of energy. He also starts to have some tummy problems. Let's say he has actually been struggling with a wheat intolerance all his life that's been kind of low grade, so he can get by. The health of his system was enough in his teens and early 20s to keep repairing the gut, repairing, but over time he started to wear away some of his ability to repair. So not everyone who has sensitivities actually gets tummy problems, as in stomach aches and gut symptoms. A lot of people actually, the sensitivities express themselves more as achy joints or fatigue, general kind of sense of malaise. But we're going to say for Mr. Bob that he's had some tummy aches. And when you have tummy aches, you start to get really tight through your diaphragm. And so you naturally come into a protective posture where you can flex over. And so right away, you can see if you're guarding your gut, then you get that neck position where the neck is arched in order to keep looking forwards. And the muscles quite quickly start to shorten. So the diaphragm doesn't work as well, and the hip flexors don't work as well. So the posture here changes dramatically. And what I want to point out now is not only is his posture changed, but in here, his lungs, which once there was a nice amount of space for them, they now are kind of squished into a smaller space. So his lung capacity isn't as good. He's not able to eliminate the toxins through his breath as easily. There's more stagnation, which means that right now, poor old Mr. Bob is much more prone to getting seasonal coughs and colds. And they don't go as easily. They linger and linger and linger. Whereas back here, he could get a cough or a cold, and it was just gone in a few days. His system could kick it out because there was a movement. He could flush his system. When there is not movement, you cannot flush the bad bugs out of your system. And that can happen anywhere in the body. When there's not movement, it causes stagnation. Stagnation is the breeding ground of illness. It's a really, really important key for you to get there. So he's got poor lung capacity. His diaphragm's not moving much, so his organs aren't getting that nice, effective massaging. He starts to get a bit constipated. He keeps eating the same foods because he they were never a problem for him before as far as he knew, so he continued not to know. And he continues to have tummy aches. And then he starts to get some low back problems. And then he starts to get some hip problems because his low back is really arched and his hips are put in a poor position because in addition to his low back being really arched, his psoas muscle, his hip flexor, is not in the ideal kind of geometric position. So we could talk a lot about a whole host of problems, but what I want you really to get here is that movement really matters, and movement is connected to gut health. So putting into your system foods that are beneficial, nourishing, and healing can help your posture. And when your posture is happy, your organs are happier and your joints are happier. So there's this real symbiosis between how you move, how you feel, what you eat. And at Intrinsi, one of our core values is to reconnect the dots between nature, nutrition, movement, health, mindset. We could keep connecting the dots. The dots should never have been disconnected in the first place. But that's why here I am as an osteopath, and I'm sharing information about movement and about gut health, because everything is connected. So I am not doing my job well if I just treat a client or a patient for a joint injury and I don't look at other aspects. So that's why here at Intrinsi we've got a natural movement center, we sell some supplements, we do the 21-day sugar detox, because everything is connected and we need to look wider and larger than looking through a single lens. So I'd love to invite you to come join me at the gut health talk that I'm giving on the 2nd of December. It's just $25. In addition to that, if you sign up for the 21-day sugar detox, which is starting really soon, then you get that gut health talk for free. And the 21-day sugar detox is a fantastic, fantastic opportunity to make that choice, to have a supportive community, to be eating differently, to be nourishing your body and healing up some of the aches, the niggles, the problems that may be really, really problematic right now, or maybe just the seed to start future problems. So wherever you're at on that spectrum, whether you're just starting to get some initial problems and noticing some initial change, or whether you're quite far down that path and really struggling with your health, we can provide a place where we can give you a lot of support and start to create some momentum to get things changed. So I really encourage you to give us a call to sign up on 403-229-9214, either for the sugar detox or just come to the gut health presentation in and of itself. And then also come and join us for natural movement so that we can start to correct how you're moving and get you inspired to bring more movement and more exercise and fitness back into your life so that you do not end up like Mr. Bob. And if you are Mr. Bob, let's get you back to being a younger, healthier version of yourself. So with that, I'm going to close and thank you very much for watching.